So, hello students, a very good afternoon to all and welcome to Daily Newspaper Analysis. Today is 5th of May and I am back with 4 important articles from The Hindu. So, please focus on each and every aspect related to these 4 topics because in between I will be asking some questions and finally at the end we shall be discussing 2 prelims practice questions. So our first important article is related to Model Code of Conduct. So basically the article discusses some of the acts or actions which can be considered as the violation of Model Code of Conduct. Second article is related to recent judgment of Supreme Court related to Forest Rights Act 2006. Next article is related to the definition of disability under Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. And finally, a very important article we have about medical inflation. So I think 2 or 3 days back, we discussed one article related to this only about increasing out of pocket expenditure, etc. So here you can consider this as an extension of this article, that article, because here we shall be discussing 2 or 3 important acts or provisions also related to medical inflation. So here our first article says, did the PM's broadcast violate Model Code of Conduct? So first of all, let's understand in a simple manner. See, you already know that ruling party have excessive control over government machinery, right? Because it's the ruling party. So government machinery means the government TV channels, the government broadcasters or the public servants, etc. So these all will be considered as a part of government machinery. So you know that ruling party have excessive control over government machinery. Now this will give an unfair advantage to ruling party, right? So because of that only we have Model Code of Conduct. What is the purpose of Model Code of Conduct? To ensure fairness, to ensure justice in the complete electoral process, so that ruling party may not have unfair advantage during the election process or election campaigning. That's why India have a provision India has a code or provision what we call as Model Code of Conduct. Now, imagine a situation the Prime Minister of India uses public television or the government funded TV channels for the election campaigning. Now, please answer this question whether this will be violation of Model Code of Conduct or not. Please think about it. Meanwhile, let's understand it with a very simple example. Consider a very small situation, the elections of your school. So, for example, 5 candidates are contesting the elections and the principal of your school gives microphone just to one candidate so that he or she can appeal to the masses. So is it fair or unfair? It's unfair, right? Because you are not giving equal opportunity to all the 5 candidates. So the same thing is discussed in the article, that whether the speech given by the Prime Minister of India on the government funded channels, whether that election speech is fair or unfair, or whether it is violating Model Code of Conduct or Representation of People's Act or not. Okay, so now let's discuss everything in detail. So what was the main issue? The main issue was because the Prime Minister of India gave election related speeches on the public broadcasters. Public broadcasters mean funded by government, and from where government is getting money, it's public money, right? So basically the ruling party is using public money for the election campaigning or election speeches. So here public broadcasters like Doordarshan, Sansad TV, All India Radio. So basically you cannot use these public platforms or public broadcasters for the election campaigning. You can use for the promotion of any scheme or anything, but for election campaigning you cannot use that. That's why opposition parties has said that this is violation of Model Code of Conduct. Here the main issue is whether this amounts to misuse of government machinery or public resources or not. This is the main question. See, if you are using public funded platform or the public funded news channels, then this is a part of government machinery only, right? So if you are using it for the election campaign, then it will be violation of Model Code of Conduct. Quickly, let's discuss about the part 7 of Model Code of Conduct. See what part 7 says. It says the party in power cannot combine official visits with the campaigning. For example, the Prime Minister of India or any minister under the union government visits, for example, Tamil Nadu. And there, along with the promotion of any particular scheme or along with the welfare programs, that particular minister is also promoting the party, or that particular minister is also doing the election campaign. So this thing is not no acceptable under Model Code of Conduct. Second thing is misuse of government machinery. So public funded news channels are part of government machinery only, so you cannot misuse government machinery for the election campaign. And third, it specifically says that misuse of publicly funded media for partisan purposes is not valid. See here what the article says. In this speech, Prime Minister of India has reportedly criticized opposition parties. Criticism of opposition parties is a part of election campaigning only, and he has also appealed to the women voters in Tamil Nadu as well as West Bengal. So you cannot use publicly funded platform for partisan purposes. This is not a good thing, and this may amount to the violation of Model Code of Conduct. Now, basically, if we talk about that what all things are allowed during the election process and what not, so basically two kind of provisions deal with this. So first of all, we are discussing about the Model Code of Conduct. So here we discussed about the part 7 of Model Code of Conduct, that these things are allowed, these things are not. Second important law which deals with the election process or electoral process, it is the Representation of People's Act 1951. This is also very important act when we are talking about the elections. So what is happening here? See, Section 123 of Representation of People's Act. It says that if you are appealing the voters on the grounds of caste, race, religion, etc., then it will be included in the corrupt practices. And if you are involved under the corrupt practices, Representation of People's Act has various kind of punishments. Either your election will become void or you cannot fight elections for 6 years. There are different provisions. So if a particular thing is a part of corrupt practice, then action can be taken against you. And this is a particular act. This is included under law. Model Code of Conduct is not included under law. It is not a legal practice. But RPA is a legal act, and hence action can be taken against the corrupt practice. Again, Section 23, Clause 7 says, if you are using government servants to help in the election campaign, this is also a corrupt practice. So government machinery includes the public servants also. It includes government funded media also, government funded broadcasters also. So basically, Article 123 of Representation of People's Act deals with the corrupt practice, and if you are involved under corrupt practice, legal action can be taken against you. Now, the article says if public broadcasters and Prime Minister office staff were used for the election propaganda, then Section 123 Clause 7 may be applied, because here you are using the public servants or the staff from the Prime Minister office. Okay, so since we are discussing about Model Code of Conduct, so let's have a basic idea about MCC. So first important thing for you to know is that it is not any act. It is a simple provision. This does not have any statutory backing, and even if you are violating Model Code of Conduct, no action can be taken against you because it is not enforceable by law. So basically, what is MCC? Model Code of Conduct are the guidelines. Who issued these guidelines? These are issued by the Election Commission of India under Article 324 of the Constitution. So Model Code of Conduct does not have any legal backing. It does not have any statutory backing. These are the guidelines. Who issued these guidelines? Issued by the Election Commission of India under Article 324 of the Constitution. What is the main purpose of Model Code of Conduct? Their main purpose is to ensure free and fair elections, so that the ruling party may not have the unfair advantage over other parties. And if we talk about the origin, so you can trace its origin in the Kerala elections in 1960. And over a period of time, various new provisions were added in the Model Code of Conduct. Important thing about MCC is the time when the Election Commission of India announces the election schedule. From that time only Model Code of Conduct comes into force, and in Model Code of Conduct various kind of activities are given, that what all activities cannot be done when the election schedule are already announced. For example, you cannot announce any new scheme, or for example you cannot announce any new monetary grant. These all things are prohibited under Model Code of Conduct. Okay, so now I think these were the important issues which we needed to discuss. So here, Model Code of Conduct, basic idea of Model Code of Conduct is very important. Section 123 of Representation of People's Act is also very important. Now, here, next article we have about the latest ruling of Supreme Court for the Forest Rights Act. So first of all, let's understand in a very simple manner. See what happened here. Earlier, the forest area or the forest land was controlled by the government. And in those times, the tribes which were living in that area, they did not have any legal rights, or their enforcement of rights for the tribals was very weak. Then came Forest Rights Act of 2006. And this act recognized the right of tribal people living in that forest area. Now, over a period of time, what happened? The government officials started saying that this forest is a part of protected area. Protected area means protected area, that means the conserved area, the protected area for the wildlife, like the Kanha Reserve, the Kanha Forest Reserve, or the Sariska Tiger Reserve. These are the protected areas. So over a period of time, government officials started saying that this particular area is the protected area. So that means you cannot claim any right on this land. That's why Supreme Court has given a recent judgment that whenever there is a conflict between the conservation laws and the rights of tribals, so the rights of tribals will always prevail. So basically the article is discussing about the conservation laws versus tribal rights. This is the main focus. So recently Supreme Court has said that no matter what, if the previous rulings of the Supreme Court or previous laws have said something else, but now what thing will prevail? That what Forest Rights Act 2006 says, that every time for rights of tribal people will prevail and no conservation laws can be imposed on these tribal people. Now let's discuss what other things article is saying. So recently what happened? This was a case of Tharu tribal community which lived in Uttar Pradesh. So what happened? Recently the district level committee have rejected their forest right claims. Forest right claims means the people are claiming that this is our land and we want the habitat rights and livelihood rights in this region. So recently their claims were rejected by the district level committee. And what was the basis? On what basis this thing was rejected? It was based on 2000 the Supreme Court order which was given in 2000. So their Supreme Court has said that there was a restriction on the reservation of the conserved areas or the protected areas like the forest sanctuaries or national parks. So now Supreme Court has said that this order was given in 2000 and Forest Rights Act came in 2006. So at present, so now Allahabad High Court has said that if an older law or court order conflicts with the later law will prevail. So this order of Supreme Court was given in 2000, but Forest Rights Act came in 2006. So that's why High Court is saying that now, since Forest Rights Act is the new act and it conserves the right of tribal people, so this thing will prevail, not the previous orders or the previous provisions. Now, if we are talking about the Forest Rights Act, let's quickly discuss what all things are included in this. The Forest Rights Act recognizes and vests rights in forest dwellers. What are those rights? First of all, the land rights. That this amount of area, for example, 4 hectares of land you can you can own this land area. Second is the community forest rights. That means the entire tribal community will be having ownership of the all the forest produce. For example, minor forest produce. Next is the grazing rights, that they have complete right over a particular land and they can use and they can take their cattle for grazing in that area. And finally, it provides the habitat rights. The habitat rights is a very broader concept. Habitat rights is now not just restricted to the livelihood in a particular area, that you make your home in this particular area, that's it. Habitat rights means your complete right over a particular space. For example, you will be having right over forest also, you will be having the right over the roads, over the trees, etc. So habitat rights are the comprehensive rights. You can use that forest for the sustenance also, etc. Very important thing in Forest Rights Act is the non-obstante clause. Non-obstante clause means that if Just a second. Yes, it contains non-obstante clause. It says notwithstanding anything contained in other law. That means no matter what previous laws are saying, whatever is written in this law will be the final. So this is the non-obstante clause in Forest Rights Act. This act also protects against eviction until claims are fully verified. For example, you belong to a tribal community and you went to the public official for claiming your right over a particular land area, that no, this land belongs to me and I want rights over this area. So this legal process might take time. So the act says until the time this complete process is not resolved, this process is not complete, no one can evict you from that forest land. Next, it says the overall article says even after these much protections which are given by the Forest Rights Act, even after that there are repeated violations of Forest Rights Act by the Forest Department. So this is not a good thing. So yes, it also says that grazing rights are also recognized under Forest Rights Act, but still some courts have upheld the restrictions which were mentioned under 2000 order of Supreme Court. So basically it is saying that Forest Rights Act is very good act per se, but the implementation is not very good. Quickly, let's discuss some of the other provisions of Forest Rights Act. So basically, it applies to forest dwelling scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers. Important thing here is that it has mentioned a cutoff date, that whoever is owning the land in forest before 13th December 2005, rights can be given only to those people. Why 13th December? Because this is the date when the Forest Rights Act bill was introduced in the parliament. So that's why government thought this date will be a very good thing to mention, because if you allow everyone to claim rights in the forest, then it will be very difficult to trace, or it will be very difficult to verify anything. So that's why any person who is owning land in the forest area before 13th December 2005, claims can be verified, or claims can be given, or rights can be given for those people only. Now, for prelims, this thing is very important, that what is the maximum ceiling of the land you can own. So you can own 4 hectares of land per family under Forest Rights Act. Very, very important. Next important thing, that these titles are heritable but not transferable. Heritable means this land can be transferred from one generation to another, but you cannot sell this land, or you cannot use it as a gifted property. Next thing is about the protection of eviction. So this thing I have already discussed, that till the time the verification process is not complete, no one can evict you from your land. Next is about the community rights. I think we discussed about it, that rights over the forest produce, like the minor forest produce. Also, it provides the development rights, that since tribal people are living in a particular area, then wherever people are living, they will be needing basic infrastructure, like the roads, like the drinking water facilities, like the school. So Forest Rights Act provide the all the development rights also. So basically you can say that Forest Rights Act 2006 is a comprehensive act which can ensure the complete welfare of tribal community. But what is the problem? Problem is with the implementation. Okay, so I think basically we discussed everything of this. Now, next article is related to the definition of disability. So recently, Supreme Court brings survivors of forcible ingestion of acid into Rights of Person with Disabilities Act. So basically, what happened? See, earlier what happened? No, under Rights of Person with Disabilities Act, one type of disability is included, and that is acid attack. So whenever no you are a survivor of acid attack, so you will be receiving benefits under this Rights of Person with Disabilities Act. But if you were forced to ingest that acid, that thing was not included under this act. So recently what Supreme Court did? Supreme Court expanded the definition of disability, and along with the acid attack victims, those victims which were forced to drink the acid or ingest the acid, those people are now also included under the act. So let's discuss what article says. So Supreme Court of India held that people who were forcibly made to ingest acid will also be treated as the acid attack victims. So earlier acid attack victims were part of this, but this thing was not the part, that if you were forced to ingest that acid. So earlier, this act recognized only victims of the acid throwing, but not forcible acid ingestion. So basically what court did, court expanded the meaning of acid attack victims. And important thing is this recognition will apply retrospectively from 2016, because in 2016 the original act came. So very important thing for you, UPSC can ask in any related to any act, that whether laws in India can be applied retrospectively or not. That means from the previous date. So everything will be applicable from previous date, that is 2016. So now since all these people will not now also be included under the act, and hence they will receive all the kind of benefits or assistance which is provided under the act. So how court could do this? Court used its plenary power under Article 142 of the Constitution. Very, very important for the exam. Plenary powers means the absolute powers. That means no one can challenge it. Just you have to act within the constitutional limits. So here Supreme Court of India has the absolute powers to act for the complete justice. So here Article 142 is used to provide immediate relief instead of waiting for the parliament. So what is the main purpose of the Article 142? It is used by the Supreme Court in cases where Supreme Court sees that the law is incomplete or there are gaps in particular law. So Article 142 is used to ensure complete justice and fairness. So I think first of all, let's discuss the exact language what Article 142 says. This is Article 142. So here it says, Supreme Court in the exercise of its jurisdiction may pass such decree or make such order as is necessary for doing complete justice in any case or matter pending before it. So whenever Supreme Court thinks that executive is not doing its job properly or legislature is not doing its job properly, that law is incomplete or there are gaps in particular law, then Supreme Court can use its power under Article 142 and ensure justice to the vulnerable sections of society. Now quickly, let's discuss some of the basic provisions which are important for the exam under Rights of Person with Disabilities Act. So first of all, what is the definition of person with disabilities? So any person with long-term physical, mental, intellectual or sensory impairment can be considered a disabled person. And here, this act recognizes 21 types of disabilities, and in that, acid attack victims are also included. So recently, Supreme Court has expanded the definition of acid attack victims. Now it also includes intellectual disability as well as mental illness. Now it also gives this particular percentage to recognize benchmark disability, and this criteria has been used in various government exams to provide the reservations. So what is benchmark disability? It is defined as at least 40% of disability, and this has to be certified by the competent authority. So this will be the basis for the availing reservations as well as the benefits. Now, next important article is related to the medical inflation. That means increasing cost of healthcare in India. Okay. So we shall be discussing all the important points from the article itself. So see, what is the meaning of medical inflation? All things which are involved in the healthcare or in the medical treatment, all those things, the price of all those things have increased over a period of time. So what all things can come? The price of medical test, the price of hospitalization, the price of surgeries, etc., etc. Basically, the article is saying the price of all these things have increased over a period of time, and they have increased to an extent that it is very difficult for a common person to lead a healthy life. Next article says that although the Economic Survey of India has estimated that health inflation was at around 3% in 2025, 3% is very nominal increase. But if you go through the private reports, Private reports estimate the inflation of around 12 to 13%. This is a huge increase in the prices for the medical equipments or the medicines. So at present, can you imagine 12 to 13% inflation in the medical things or the cost of medicines, hospitalization, etc. Here, article also talks about the out-of-pocket expenditure, that out-of-pocket expenditure is increasing. I think this we discussed in the previous article also. What is out-of-pocket expenditure? The expenditure which you have to do from your own pocket. See, if you belong to a BPL category, you can be covered under the government health insurance scheme, that is Atmanirbhar Bharat Jan Arogya Yojana. Problem with that scheme is that even after you are covered under the health insurance scheme, the reimbursement which government provides to the private or any hospital is very low compared to the market rate. And because of that, there are various hidden charges in the private hospitals. Hidden charges like extra cost for the medicine, extra cost for the medical test, etc. So even after you are covered under medical health insurance, after that also out of pocket expenditure is very high. Article says that average out of pocket expenditure has rose to around 34%, but if you talk about the private hospitals, it has reached to over 50,000 rupees. Why we are discussing about the private hospitals? Because at present public hospitals or the government hospitals do not have much capacity for the treatment, and hence people go to the private hospitals, but they are very costly. Now the article discusses some of the major causes which are related to the increased healthcare cost. Very important reason is the healthcare privatization. Because just now I discussed that public hospitals or government hospitals do not have that much capacity so that they can cater to the need of each and every person, and hence people has to go to the private hospitals. Second important reason is the rise of non-communicable diseases. Earlier, the major burden was related to communicable diseases, for example, TB or malaria. But now more and more diseases are the non-communicable, for example, cancer or diabetes. So that's why their cost of healthcare is also very high. Next important point is the import dependence for the medical devices. Because see, if you are having any chronic disease or critical disease, you will be needing the specialized medical devices, and still India have to depend on the foreign countries, for example China, for the import of all these devices. That these are some of the reasons for the rising healthcare cost in India. Next, if we talk about the privatization of the healthcare, so as I have already discussed that health privatization is major reason for the increasing cost of healthcare, because with more than 61% of the hospitalization is happening in private hospitals, because public or government hospitals do not have that much capacity. The article also highlights inadequate health insurance coverage. It says that less than half of the Indian households have some kind of health cover. So this is very critical thing. That rise of healthcare cost is increasing, non-communicable diseases percentage is increasing, and still less than half of the Indian households are covered under health cover. Now, a very important term which is given in the article is the missing middle. What is missing middle? Missing middle is the group of people. Yes. So what is missing middle? Basically, these are the group of people which can neither be included in the government funded health insurance schemes because they are not that much poor, they do not belong to BPL category, so they cannot come under Ayushman Bharat Yojana, nor they are that much rich so that they can easily pay the premium of the private insurance policy. So this is the meaning of missing middle, that this group of people are missing from both kind of policies. They cannot come under the government health insurance also, and they cannot buy the private health insurance policies also. So this is the dilemma of missing middle in India. Okay, hi Janu. And okay, so this is the concept of missing middle. So here again the article discusses about the Ayushman Bharat Yojana. So it says the same thing which we discussed in the previous article, that though it is providing the health insurance, but it is the reimbursement which it is providing, the reimbursement is very less. And sometimes there are challenges of claim rejection also from the insurance companies. Now, Public health expenditure in India remains below 2% of the GDP, which weakens the public health care. So the article says that no, in foreign countries, the public healthcare expenditure is around 6% of the GDP, 4%, 5%, 6% of the GDP. But India has just 2% of the GDP in the public healthcare expenditure. So this is not good thing for India, and India must include this expenditure in the public healthcare services. Now, the article gives some of the solutions, that what can be the solutions. So first solution can be, you have to increase the capacity and you have to increase the quality of the public healthcare services, so that people will not have to depend on the private healthcare facilities. Second thing is, there must be better insurance coverage, because if you have better insurance coverage, no matter what disease you have, you can easily get the treatment. Next thing is the price regulation. See, price regulation is very, very important, because just now we discussed that medical regulation is around 12% or 13%. So price regulation for the medical treatment, medical devices, medicines is very, very important. Now here, three important things you must have an idea. First solution is that government must expand the national list of essential medicines 2022. See, what is national list of essential medicines? Let's discuss this. National list of essential medicines is released by the Ministry of Welfare, and this list includes very, very important medicines which are important for this particular time at present, and or for all those medicines the price are capped. That means in India, National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority decides price of particular healthcare instrument or medicine. So all those medicines which are included in this list, they will be sold at the price below which is fixed by this authority. So the article is proposing a solution that many of these essential medicines must be included under the national list of essential medicines. So you must expand this list. So if you include more and more medicines in the list, more and more price can be kept, and hence medical inflation can reduce. So here, India framed this essential medicine list, which is released by the WHO. So WHO has a standard essential medicines list, which has more than 500 medicines. But in India, the number is less. So that's why article is proposing that India must include the number of medicines in this list, so that price can be easily capped. Second important thing what the article says is that government must expand the Essential Commodities Act 1955. Just now we discussed about the national list of essential medicines. So in this way price can be capped. Next article says that government must expand the Essential Commodities Act. So what all things are included under Essential Commodities Act? Government can regulate the price of those commodities, and government can prevent the hoarding, or government can prevent the artificial increasing of the price of these commodities. So first important thing is government must expand the national list of essential medicines, and second thing, government must expand the Essential Commodities Act. So in Essential Commodities Act, medicines are included. Article is saying that government must also include the healthcare services, because earlier medicines were included, medical devices were included. Article is saying government must include the healthcare services also, so that the overall cost of the healthcare can be reduced. Now, if we are discussing about the medical inflation, medical facilities, all these things, so here the mention of the Clinical Establishments Act 2010 is very, very important. So what is the purpose of this act? Clinical Establishments Act seeks to regulate all the clinical establishments in India. Clinical establishments means all the hospitals, all the clinics, all the nursing homes. So overall, this act regulates all these kind of facilities in India. So what all things it will regulate? It will set up the minimum healthcare criteria, that this must be minimum quality for the healthcare in this setup. Second thing, it will provide the qualifications for the medical personnel who are working in all these type of establishments. And it can also say that you cannot provide the medical treatment at a price above which is decided by the central government as well as the state government. So that's why this thing is very, very important. Now, one more thing here, that as you know that health is a state subject, right? Health is a state subject. But this act, the Clinical Establishments Act 2010, this act was made by the parliament. So now how is it possible that government has made a law which is government has made a law on subject which is part of state subject? So this was done using the powers under Article 252 of the Constitution. What Article 252 says? Two or more than two states can request the Parliament to make law on the subject which was the part of state list. So here, government has made this act, and this act is automatically not applicable on all the states in India. Whenever or whenever any state passes the resolution that we agree that parliament will make act on this particular subject, so that this act will be applicable on those states only. So here you must remember the power of parliament under Article 252, that two or more than two states can request the parliament to make law on a particular subject. Okay, so I think this was done. Okay, so we discussed about the Essential Commodities Act, right? That it is enacted by the central government so as to ensure the availability of essential goods to the citizens. So article is saying that you must include the healthcare services also as the essential goods so that price can be easily capped. Now, a practice question for you. So the practice question says, which of the following rights are recognized under Forest Rights Act 2006? So first are the grazing rights, second are the habitat rights, and third are the community forest resource rights. So please provide the answer in the comment section because I think we discussed all the rights in detail. Second question is, consider the following statements regarding the Essential Commodities Act of 1955. The first is, it empowers the central government to regulate the production, supply, and distribution of essential commodities in public interest. Second is, the central government can impose stock limits to prevent hoarding and black marketing of essential commodities. Third statement says, the act was amended in 2020 to deregulate certain agricultural commodities under specified extraordinary circumstances. So please read in detail about this act and try to answer this question. Okay, so I think that's all from my side for today. Thank you and have a nice day.